Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today for our virtual industry open house. We're happy to have with us this afternoon the team from NACDS, the National Association of Chain Drug Stores. I'm Patrick Spear, and together with Tom Duffy. We're happy you've joined us, and we're looking forward to introducing you to our friends at NACDS. Should you not be familiar with them, the great work that they're doing on behalf of the industry, and where and how the GMDC community can participate with NACDS moving forward. Joining us today from NACDS is Steve Anderson, President and CEO of the organization, Jim Whitman, Senior Vice President, Member Programs and Services, and Steve Perlowski, Vice President, Industry Affairs and Member Relations. Tom Duffy, before we kick it over to our friends at NACDS, any opening thoughts for our members?
Thanks, Patrick and Steve, Jim and Steve. Thanks again for joining us. The GMDC membership, many of you are looking for opportunities in the industry, and I think you're going to spend a short time here learning about some tremendous ones that can be right sized for each one of your organizations. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Anderson, who's going to take us down this path of value that is available for all of you today.
Thank you, Tom.
Well, thank you, Patrick and Tom, and good afternoon, I guess. We may be all in the afternoon now, but we really appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. My name is Steve Anderson, and I'm President and CEO of NACDS, and as Tom and Patrick pointed out, we're joined by Jim Whitman and Steve Perlowski of our team. And we just would like to have a great discussion with you. I have to say we've had just a long, storied and a very successful relationship with the GMDC over the many years, decades, I guess. And we have worked very closely with them on so many common issues that affects our mutual members. And hopefully that will be apparent today. And we'll just try to keep this as casual as we can. We did, for the sake of structure here, we did come up with an agenda that you'll see in front of you, and we'll work through that. But this is all about your inquiries to us and questions that you may have about us and how we can help your businesses moving forward. As has been pointed out, NACDS is really more than what people perceive as being chain drugstores, even though it is in our title. Our members include traditional drugstores, large and small, food and grocery stores, large and small, and then the mass merchants, which will include Walmart, Costco, Meijer, and other mass merchants. So we handle almost every aspect of the consumer packaged good and pharmacy portion of the industry. We have over 75 chain retail members, 40,000 retail pharmacies within our membership. You may have heard President Biden, when he's been talking about COVID, saying there's a pharmacy, 90% of the American people live within 5 miles of a pharmacy. Those are our talking points that he has finally picked up as a result of the great work that our members and our staff have done on COVID. And then in addition, we have 3 million employees that work in those 75 companies and 155,000 pharmacists. And then we are associate supplier community. We have about 700 companies, and then we have 70 international members representing 21 different countries. We'd like to really focus on where we are today in this, almost the 90-year history of NACDS, as we keep reinventing ourselves almost yearly, if not daily, in light of COVID, which I'll get to right now. I'd like to focus really on our advocacy of what we do that really benefits all of our members, and not just our chain members, but our supplier and associate members as well. We've been talking about our members being the face of neighborhood healthcare for about 14 years. And I challenge our staff every year, is that tagline still work? And it does work. We are really the health and wellness destination for the country. And that became readily apparent as we, I guess it was March of 2020, where our CEOs of some of our chains were with President Trump in the Rose Garden when he declared COVID a national emergency, and our members committed to doing COVID testing at that point. And that really stepped up our opportunity to work with the Trump administration and now with the Biden administration in terms of what we've been doing for the American people with COVID. There was a headline that came out earlier this year as we were going into 2021, and it said if pharmacies nail it, they're going to be the heroes of 2021, which I think our members were, and they really did an extraordinary job. They stayed open throughout the pandemic when others closed. As we say, our doors were always open, our lights were on, and as we pivoted from doing COVID testing, we are now engaged in vaccinations, and probably many of you have had your vaccinations for COVID in one of our member company stores, and hopefully that was a good experience for you as opposed to these mass immunization sites, which you don't want to get me talking about. But I think it just shows what retail can do when they're asked to do that. And I had the opportunity to work with the Operation Warp Speed team in the Trump administration as they were developing the team, which we didn't have much to do with, but in the preparedness for the deployment and getting the shots in arms. And that's where it fell to pharmacy more than anywhere else. And then we transitioned very successfully to the Biden administration after the inauguration in January. And we worked very closely with the administration to set up the federal retail pharmacy program. And, the president, as you may remember, said before he was inaugurated, he wanted to do 100 million shots in 100 days. And we modeled it and said, Mr. President, we can do 100 million shots in 30 days if you just give us the vaccine. And our increase of the vaccine, the allocation moved forward very quickly. And that's when our members really did a great job in creating really a halo that our industry has right now. So, as a result of that hard work, we still are the face of neighborhood healthcare, and about 70 to 80% of all COVID shots in the country are happening in a retail pharmacy, which, is really, I use that as an example. It's a very important point to make because we're still in the middle of this pandemic, but it just shows the sense of what I'm going to talk about now is community. We operate under the premise that no matter the size of your company, all of our members are important. And as an example, even though maybe our larger chains were involved in the federal program, we worked very closely so our regional traditional drugstores and grocery stores could work through the states and serve the American people, both in terms of COVID testing and now vaccinations. And, there's so much you can do when you unite through an association. And that's really our premise, as opposed to what individual companies can do. And that sense of community just wasn't in the advocacy in COVID that I just used as an example, but also how we unified the industry. It was very difficult for every association without meetings over the last several years. And one of our supplier members said, told us that NACDS was really the glue that kept this industry together during the pandemic. And we did that with various meetings we had virtual meetings, we had regular programs called NACDS Live. We have another one of those tomorrow with, I'll be joined by Colleen Lindholtz, who's the president of Kroger Health, who's our chair, and Brian Nightingale with AmerisourceBergen and Good Neighbor Pharmacy tomorrow. But we worked really very closely with our members. And, as we moved our meetings virtually, and you're going to hear a little bit very shortly from Jim and Steve about our meetings. But, as we moved our annual meeting virtual, and then our Total Store Expo virtual. It really had a great, participation rate. You get a lot of scalability when you do those kind of things. So that's kind of the sense of community that we have moving forward. And, one thing I'll have just a little personal note, the reason I love association work, and I know Patrick and Tom and Jim and Steve will subscribe to this, it's all about the relationships, that one-on-one interaction that we all have together. And, I've been at this association for 14 years, and it never ceases to amaze me the kind of personal relationships that people have, no matter what segment of the industry they're from, or no matter what size of their company. And that's what's the glue that brings us all together. So we're very anxious, and I can promise you we will be having our meetings in 2022 moving forward. And, if we don't do it with doing the vaccinations, I don't know what association's going to do it, but we're really looking forward to that and build back to those relationships better. And, once again, we've got a lot to celebrate, even though this has been a major tragedy for the world and our country for the last couple of years. But we really do have a lot to celebrate in terms of how our members really opened the economy and opened our society, which is profound. I saw a statistic the other day. There were more people that died of COVID than all of our wars combined. And that's just a tragedy. But, our members were front and center, and, we're getting us to where we need to get, where we at least feel some sense of normality. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim and Steve. So, gentlemen.
Thank you, Steve. And again, thank you, Patrick and Tom, for the opportunity. And welcome to all those on the other side of the screen who I may know. It's a pleasure seeing you, if you will. And those I don't know, we hope to get to know you a little bit better moving forward. So we stand ready to assist and welcome you to NACDS, which is really, what this is all about. As you said, I think as Steve and both Patrick said, there's a lot of good relationships between GMDC and NACDS, and we want to continue that with it. So what we thought we would do, some of you may know a little bit about it, but some of you not. So we thought we'd try and do some highlights. And I want to say, if there's questions, we're going to give you our contact information at the end that you can follow up. Certainly get a hold of Tom or Patrick. If you don't want to jot down an email and something comes up down the road, feel free. But, if we take a look at NACDS, I know everyone has a website, but we just want to say, the whole premise is to have relevant and succinct information available to everybody. And that's where our entire goal. And so I'm going to focus on a couple of the areas that Steve really alluded to. One was, the first area you can see there is membership. And in that area, we have a very interesting, because we want to take to you, we have a very robust directory, which allows companies, if you will, both, as Steve said, we have retailers and we have supplier companies or associate members, and both of them are in the directory. And so what we're doing is it's a one-stop shopping for names, contact information, people that you want to get a hold of. You have a question about a buyer or a person, an executive in a retailer, you can go in there and see, it's listed by names by alphabetical, and you can track them. You can, similar to if a company has a question about you, they can go to your listing and see who's there. So again, it allows people to do things on their own. And then obviously Steve and I are always available for phone calls, if you will, about I went on, I couldn't see the person, or I didn't notice. Did you give me some assist? But we know both ways work. So we did want to really, point that out. There's advocacy, which Steve alluded to, and we're very big in that. This is not about advocacy, but it's hugely important. I should say, when the COVID did hit, I think our advocacy efforts actually, in many ways, it was interesting. Much of what we had been working with, like everyone else, all of a sudden things you were doing had to be done in 3 months, not a year. Similar to advocacy, a tremendous amount of opportunities presented itself on the pharmacy business and the business of our members in the stores and suppliers. And so it all came about very, very fast, and a lot of that in an advocacy, and we're happy to discuss it in the questions. And part of it. I would, Steve, why don't you go to the next slide before we go to meetings for a second?
Jim, just to also point out,
Yes.
one of the things that we did was we leveraged data that suppliers provided us in their Total Store Expo contract. And we created a directory, a product and category directory for our members, especially during the initial stages of COVID, when nobody knew what, their reliable sources became unreliable and people were looking for anything to put on their shelves. We came up with a quick way for our retailers to search by product category for suppliers that might be able to supply their needs that they may have never done business with before. We continue to update that every year so that now the companies that signed up for Total Store Expo in 2021, their information was included in this today. So just another benefit of being a member of NACDS, we come up with creative ways to merchandise your company and your products to our members.
And when we go to the next one, to Steve's, to sort of go back, the premise has always been with NACDS, even prior to pre-COVID, was to take what we have and make sure it continues. So you'll see that there's things that we did that were in one format because of an opportunity, whether it be the last couple of years, to create other additional formats to have this information. So again, to make it easier and more effective for people to interact, again, obviously, people all of a sudden were doing Teams and Zoom calls and too many emails and too many invitations. So again, a lot of the information was available so you could do it again. If you're doing it in the middle of the night, you're doing it on weekends. And when life has changed, working remotely as opposed to offices, no one traveling, there was still a need. So our premise was really to say, okay, we know certain things have changed, but let's try and eliminate as many of those and deal as if nothing had changed and move forward. And so one of the areas that we did is, there's where we have resources, critical issues for change in manufacturers. There's always a question of how do I talk to somebody? And I think this was an example of where you have a small versus talking to a large, or a large talking to a small, and the kinds of opportunities. This was developed by our members, both retailers and suppliers, of what they would think if would be needed. Not every point needs to be covered, but again, in certain instances, if you were meeting with someone, what some of the areas that you would again possibly want to consider talking, and then obviously tailoring their agenda. Our point in raising that these are the kinds of things that we constantly survey our retailers and suppliers, and again, keep it current and keep it up to date, and try and provide, again, resources. So if you're sitting there, I got a meeting with a large manufacturer, I have a large retailer or a small retailer, what would be on their mind, just so I can start preparing? Well, here's a quick reference to look, and then you start tailoring it. Obviously, not every retailer is the same, so you can pick and choose. We've made reference to our meetings, and if you want to pop up the next one, Steve. So when we went, I think many of you may know about our meetings, and real quickly, Regional Chain is a meeting that we start the year off, as you see, in 2022, and it's geared for our small company retailers, a specific meeting for them. And this is where they get to set they're setting the agenda. And it's small in nature, but we also have suppliers who come where there's opportunities for one-on-one. It's not an exhibit show, it's more tables, if you will. It's available, so the retailers are there. You're getting both pharmacy and front end or CBG buyers from the retailers, and also the executives of our regional members. And you're also going to get, it's by invitation for supplier companies. And the reason that is because we want to make sure that a supplier understands what retailers are there. And if you will, that a supplier is not bringing the $10 million solution to this meeting. They may be bringing the couple $100,000 solution to the meeting, understanding the needs of the audience, the needs of the attendees. If you went to the NACDS website as I'm talking, or if you look even after this, you can take a look at who's currently registered for the conferences by company name only. And again, I encourage you to get a hold of Steve Prowski or myself after this if you want to get more into the detail. But, you know, obviously the names of the companies are up there, but the names of the individuals aren't. As we said, when you do register and participate and you're getting there, one of the things is access and how to make that happen. So when you go on to a meeting and you go to a company and you look at the attendees by clicking on their name, you're going to be taken right into their, right into their email and their phone numbers listed there. So you have the option, texting, phoning, emailing, and to try, you know, to set up a time to talk or to make an introduction. Our annual meeting, again, is very, very key. It's a top to top. Some of you may have known about it or heard about it, but it's, you know, well known within the industry. It's a meeting that is very strategic in nature, and you're going to get the top executives from both the retailers and the suppliers. On the suppliers side, you have a lot of CEOs and the COOs, obviously, certainly CMOs and supply chain people, e-commerce people now from both retailers. So you're also getting buyers and directors coming into the conferences. And then our Total Store Expo, which I'm going to get to. You know, when we decided to do it the last couple of years, as we mentioned, we went virtual in 20 and 21 with these conferences. And the important part was, I think many of you sat through virtual meetings. Our philosophy was this: they're not going to be easy to do. So we wanted to make them as relevant as possible to the attendees. So we kept everything the same in terms of how you request meetings, how you get confirm meetings, the content and all, but actually instead of meeting in a meeting room on a location, you're actually doing it by a Zoom or a Teams call, which the technology, different than some organizations, that was between the buyer and the supplier to decide on what technology. We didn't pick and choose it all. I think it worked well in our world because it kept everyone on a familiar basis, which was really very, very, you know, instructive. I should say, you'll hear about it. You know, Steve Anderson asked us, Steve and I, how are we going to, you know, the world's changed right now. We have to make a statement to our industry. We need to be involved. We need to be invested in their future. Their future is taking a little bit of a turn, as well as the NACDS future. And we made the strong decision when we took a look at that. When we got back to Steve, we said, let's really invest in everyone's future. So as an aside, just the commitment we have to our members, we actually returned all registration funds for registration, exhibit fees, and everything for 20 and 21 back to the members in this virtual world. I should say we're going to go in person in 2022, and that generosity has stopped. But to let you know, we understood we needed to invest in your situation through no doing of your own. We wanted to make a strong statement so on the commitment to the members that we go. Steve, if you want to go to a little bit, we're going to talk in a minute about Total Store Expo. I'm going to turn it over to Steve, but Total Store Expo is our trade show, and that's in an exhibit hall. It's exhibits, and we've structured it. Total Store Expo actually came about from a combination in 2013 from two individual trade shows. One was our marketplace, which is pure CBG, if you will. The other was the pharmacy conference, which was more pharmacy and technology, obviously, and both of them included services. Our board of directors said, let's take a look at a more efficient way of doing this. And we came up with the idea of calling it the Total Store Expo and putting the two conferences together, which has actually really worked out very, very well. It gets the entire industry there. And one of the side benefits as opposing for both suppliers and retailers is a lot of the people never ever talk to the people down the hall or on another floor, even within their own companies. So being together in one conference actually allowed that. And so the approach to the meetings, you know, was much more diverse, was, you know, also more fluid in the terms of developing it and tailoring it for the individual companies. And it's worked out well for NACDS, and it's worked out but more importantly, it's worked out well for the attendees. And I think the best part about it is you see this meeting is going to be held this coming August, which is about 8.5 months away, and we're already 75% sold out on the exhibitor side. So I think it's an indication that people are, you know, understand the value of what we're doing, even though it's going to be in August of 22. Steve, if you want to go to the next one. So, see, I like to have Steve, if you would, talk a little bit about some of the demographics for Total Store Expo.
Sure. So what you have here, one is on the left, obviously, is just a photograph from the 2019 Total Store Expo, which is the last one we had, just to reaffirm that it is an exhibit trade show. And then on the right is the breakout of the categories that we consider the major categories in a store. And what we've done done here is we've taken the buyers that are the outlets, the number of retail outlets by category buyers. So the baby care buyers that are registered for the show currently operate 79,500 stores. If you look at the number of the next column over, those are the companies that are contracted for the 2022 Total Store Expo already. So there's 23 suppliers that are registered that are going to have the opportunity to sell to 79,000 retail outlets. If you look at personal care, HBC, that's 83,000 outlets, and there's 60 or 50 companies that are currently registered for that. OTC, 96,500, and there's 100 suppliers that are currently registered. So obviously you can see, the line I always used was, where do you fish? Where the fish are. And we like to think that we have fish. We both have a good mix of fish and a nice mix of fishermen at our events. And we hope that you'll join us because we think you want to fish too.
Actually, it's more remarkable that Steve's using this analogy because he's actually allergic to fish. I have no idea why he uses this, but I think the important thing about it is, again, we are a home, a venue for people to come together to do business, if you will. It's a relationship business. It's one that's continuing building. So it's an area that we spend a tremendous amount of focus, and then we provide resources throughout the year. Once you're registered involved in any CDS, we didn't show you're getting every other week. There's a newsletter, if you will, that you get that's got links and resources. We also do that's provided to specifically for the meeting. There's NACDS Essentials, which is a daily newsletter that goes out there that has a lot of information out there. The nice thing about it, it's short, it's paragraph form with links. You can scan it real easily. You can click on the link for additional information and where the article may come from. So it's really as much as you want to get involved in, and as always, if you need additional information, Steve and I are always available for it. Our constituency, as we say, member programs and services, the members that Steve Anderson alluded to, and the retailers and the members and the suppliers, so about the 800 are all, if you will, our customers, and we try and talk to them every day. We do, even for a little bit different, when we're doing the exhibits for Total Store Expo, we actually, with our membership set up, started in September, third week of September, just concluded right before Thanksgiving. But, just for that itself, we scheduled 15-minute calls with every member, whether you're interested, not interested, if nothing else, just to get caught up. Again, during COVID, it was an opportunity to see what was going on. So we have opportunities throughout the year that we're going to reach out to you if we don't hear from you. One of the highlights of Total Store Expo is something that we call Meet the Market, similar to much of what many of the associations, GMDC, and others have their own version. It's sort of our version of speed dating, if you will. And we've been working on this, for a long time. It's retailers participate, suppliers have the option of participating in, and if you have multiple categories, you have the option of picking the category that you'd like to focus with Meet the Market. But as it's outlined right here, it's actually held the day before the actual exhibit show starts, and it's where any CDS arranges your dates, if you will, for you. And we set up a series of 10-minute appointments for you on a Saturday. And as an aside, we provide coffee and a continental before and lunch during, so that you don't have to. We keep everyone together. There's no reason to leave and take a break. during the time of the meetings. You know, it's worked out very, very well for NACDS. We're using it. We were able to come up with about in the range of 6,500 to 7,000 appointments on that on this one day for everybody. It is, you know, it's 10 minutes, but it's a great way to get started. It's actually part and parcel of your engagement in NACDS Total Store. It's not extra. It's included, if you will, in. Steve, if you want to, you know, elaborate a little bit further on how the program works.
Sure. So this week we actually started sending out sign up forms for to people, to exhibitors to sign up for Meet the Market. I think we already have about 40 companies signed up, and we've already been out getting retailers to sign up to participate, and that's going very well. So what happens is when you sign up, you provide us with a list of categories that you want to sell. And then we match those categories with the categories the buyers want to buy. And then we kind of give every retailer a kind of rating so that everybody gets the same quote unquote score, so that, you know, no one's going to meet with the biggest 5 and somebody else is going to meet with the smallest 5. It's going to be a blend, and it's all based on the number of suppliers that participate in the category and the number of retailers that are signed up to meet in those categories. What's different about ours is the retailers are the ones that are permanently seated at the tables, and the suppliers move around from appointment to appointment. And that works really well, because if you've got to get to another appointment, you're going to wrap up and be on time versus trying to extend the presentation past the 10 minutes. So we do that. And that's why there's a fairly short 2-minute time frame. There's about 300 meeting locations within the room across the different categories. Each company gets one schedule, and they can have 2 individuals per company can participate. And you may say, well, I use a broker for retailer A and a different broker for retailer B. You can switch those badges out so that, you know, the right people are meeting with the right customer at the right time, kind of thing. And what happens is, in the beginning of, or probably the middle of July, we send out to the retailers that are participating a preliminary schedule. They're given the ability to determine who, you know, on their list, you know, they may have just met with, you know, within the last couple of weeks. So they can ask to have those companies taken out, and then we resort again, send everybody else their final or near final about a week in advance. We provide tips on how to research information on that retailer. So your first question is, you know, where's Walgreens located? You know, or, Walmart, are you guys a national chain? So that you can do your homework ahead of time, so that you're most prepared and have a meaningful 10-minute agenda. So, you know, the ultimate objective, while there have been instances where orders do come out of Meet the Market, you know, a really good result is, you know, what's your booth? I'll stop by and we can finish our conversation. Or, you know, here's an invitation to come meet me, wherever I physically am, because, you know, we know buyers are now spread out across the country and not necessarily in their headquarter location anymore. So, or it may be, you know, here's my address, send me samples, where before you had the hardest time trying to figure out where to send samples, in today's day and age. So, you know, there's some really good outcomes that occur out of Meet the Market. And it can help set you up for a very good next couple of days during the Total Store Expo.
Yeah, a couple other points, if I can just add. Steve, we took a look at what makes this successful, and that's why, when you think about it, or later on think about it, by keeping the retailers permanently located and not having to move around, it makes sure the meetings are going to be timely. It makes sure that no one's going to get delayed and waylaid, or someone's going to be pulled in a different direction. And so that's key to making this as successful as it is. I should say too, I used the word successful. We're invested in your success throughout the year. So we have a series of webinars that are going to start, even though it's August, we'll be starting up first quarter of 2020, how to be successful, whether it's, using our webinar, how to use a directory, product availability, what to use. Even on the we encourage people to use videos on their company listings. You don't know how to do it, we'll help you, upload it, if you will. So there's all sorts of steps that we'll do. These go about every other week, and they're repeated. They're posted on our website. So if you missed one, you can take a look at it. Obviously, give us a buzz. So we're invested in your success. We want you to grow with us, because if that does, it's a win-win. I mean, when all is said and done, if you're growing and being more successful, and you're working with us, then we believe we'll be, we'll be part of that success. Lastly, we have to mention it. Moving forward, we obviously are sensitive to what's going on with all the COVID. We've instituted a tremendous amount of safety protocols for all the meetings that are going to be in 2022. Vaccines will be required, and sanitation and hand sanitizer and other kinds of cleaning and restrictions will be, working with hotels, convention centers. I say it because it is a factor of life. I don't think in 22 it's all going to disappear. So we're working with everybody on that. So with that, we have one more slide left, and Steve, you want to pop it up? And we'd like to get you guys involved with NACDS, and some may say, I know, maybe I'm not. What's in it for me? What's the incentive right here? So I mean, basically, we want you to give us a buzz, and we're going to put our numbers up here. But we want to talk to you about providing it's an investment you have to make. It's an investment we have to make. So we'll provide a 1-year complimentary membership to NACDS, and from that, you're going to get. We mentioned the various things that you can participate, webinars and things, the directories and what have you. But there's other areas. We have an entity called the Outreach and Business Development, ORBD group, which is basically for small and/or mid-sized companies that's separate, that does their own, if you will, committee kinds of work that we have programs involved. You'll be able to attend NACDS as if you're a member, and obviously there are registration fees. Steve mentioned the directory, the product directories, all accesses. I mean, basically, you're going to get every right other than as being a member. You just won't have to pay membership for the year of 22. If anyone wants to be aggressive, you can get a hold of us later on, and we'll make you a member today. But you get the last 3 weeks of December of 21. Access to the newsletters and publications and the websites and things. So again, we're open. We're encouraged. We really want to. Can't tell you how much we like you guys involved with us. We think there's an opportunity there. Certainly, an opportunity for NACDS. So, Steve Anderson, any final words? We turn it back to Patrick and Tom.
I just want to thank Patrick and Tom and all of you for your participation today. And this industry is so strong, and it's got so much to offer. And by working through NACDS, I mean, I'll tell you what, every day I wake up and I feel fortunate that we work here, because we are doing great things for the American people. We're basically opening the economy. And, when all those people are coming into our drug and mass and food and grocery stores, they see that. They see the heroes that have been on the front lines of the front lines, as our chair, Colleen Lynn-Holtz, talks throughout the pandemic. And, it's working. And, we're getting back to some sense of normalcy here. And this is what, from my perspective, I call about the power of association with singular, the power of association that you can associate with your colleagues, even though you may be competitors, but you can, find common ground and do extraordinary things. And that's kind of the premise of what NACDS is all about. So thanks for the opportunity.
Well, let me just say thank you to you and the NACDS team, Steve. And, to your point, what a privilege to serve this industry and to serve within an association. I was talking to somebody recently about the notion of, can we find the mom and apple pie story in what we do? And clearly you have, and the work that NACDS has done through the pandemic, great leadership of one of my favorite industry leaders, Colleen Lindholtz. It shines through every day, and it's exciting for Tom and I and our staff to get our members connected to organizations like yours, because it matters. And the opportunity to make these connections, to get our members in touch with you guys, and to explore ideas and opportunities for 2022 is tremendous. So we appreciate you all making time for us today. And we're going to be, as we've recorded this session, making it available to our members on our website. That'll go up in the next few days. We'll have it up there through Q1. And again, if we can create connectivity, Jim Whitman, Steve Pulowski, to you guys, get our members reaching out to you to discuss where and how they can participate. I certainly appreciate the offer you're making to our members. It's very generous, and I'm certain they'll be appreciative. And here we go with contact information. So this is perfect timing. And we'll look forward to getting this in front of our members. Grateful for your time today. Tom, am I missing anything as we come to the end of our time together?
No, I think I'll just wrap up in my thoughts. If you think about NACDS, what we just heard in the last 40 minutes or so, industry leading events, you've got tools that are data driven, such as the member directory, opportunities for networking, agendas that are can be customized, that are going to drive fruitful discussions, coaching, tips, connection to the outreach and business development group, and really, something that's resonating to our members that are looking for this. It's all connected to growth-oriented outcomes. So we, again, as everybody said, we really appreciate the offer, appreciate the time, and I would really ask our members to reach out to Jim and Steve and team and learn more, figure out what fits for you, and take that next step.
Outstanding. Tom, thank you for that. Steve, Jim, and Steve, it's great to see you. Appreciate the time you've given us today and the insights you're providing to our members. Look forward to creating that connectivity, and grateful for the partnership we've shared with you guys over the years. So thank you for everything, and look forward to continuing the conversation. Guys, have a great holiday season.
Thank you.
Thank you. Best to you guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Happy holidays to all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
2022.